Welcome to tonight's live stream. I'm going to get started in a minute. Just want to let everybody on social media know that the live stream is getting ready to start. What's going on, Bombor, Luciano? Getting ready to start my stream right now. And today's stream is asking one question. Why can't DC Comics and Warner Brothers get it right as it relates to DC Comics TV shows and movies? Because recently I read an article stating that Robert Pattinson of Twilight is going to be the choice to be casted as the new Batman in Matt Reeves' The Batman. And this is a clear case of miscasting because Robert Pattinson is absolutely nothing like the Dark Knight from the comic books, and he doesn't seem to have the screen presence to play the part of the Batman at all. I mean, he doesn't have any of Batman's dark presence, nor does he have any sort of suaveness or sophistication that Bruce Wayne is known for. So when I look at the casting of Robert Pattinson, I see a clear case of a miscasting here. And sadly, this fits right in line with the overall picture of Warner Brothers ever since the days where the Dark Knight trilogy ended. Because it seems like after the Dark Knight trilogy ended, DC Comics and Warner Brothers just hasn't been able to mount any sort of offensive as related to creating a series of quality films. And this is sad because DC Comics was the originator of the superhero movie, because back in 1978, it was Warner Brothers and DC Comics which opened the door for the superhero genre with Superman the movie in 1978. And with that film, they created an entire film genre for the next 30 or 40 years. And sadly, they have not been able to really have a significant impact in the superhero film genre since the last Dark Knight movie, which was The Dark Knight Returns, I believe. Not The Dark Knight Returns, The Dark Knight Rises. And ever since then, the crown for superhero movies has gone to Marvel Studios, and your DC has never really been able to really get its legs as related to superhero films to provide any sort of significant competition to Marvel Studios. Because I believe if DC had a visionary working for them, they could have really provided a horse race for films, and we could have really seen some seriously great films. Because as it relates to DC Comics catalog, they have some of the best characters as related to superheroes. But the big problem with Warner Brothers is they seem to hire the absolute wrong people to go out here and make their films most of the time. And the first thing that they made the mistake on after Marvel Studios had the successful start of the Marvel Cinematic Universe was hiring Zack Snyder to be in charge of the DC Cinematic Universe and laying the foundation of the DC Cinematic Universe. And the first film that he made in the DC Cinematic Universe that was a major mistake was your Man of Steel. And now, Man of Steel, the big problem with that film, after seeing it twice now, is that it doesn't capture any of the spirit of Superman. It doesn't have any of the story of Superman. It's just too dark, too angry, and too deconstructed. And those are elements that just aren't what Superman is all about. Superman is supposed to be a bright, happy world filled with hope, and Superman is supposed to represent hope. And we didn't get any sort of hope in that Man of Steel, and that laid the foundation for a very, very weak DC cinematic universe that never really took off after the very dark and angry Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, a film that was a complete disaster. And in the aftermath of that, we did get one film that was really good. We did get Wonder Woman, I believe. No, we got Justice League. I think we got Justice League before Wonder Woman, but Justice League was a disaster as well. But Wonder Woman was one of the bright spots in the whole DC cinematic universe. But that was due to Patty Jenkins' direction and her ability to shake off much of Zack Snyder's dark vision and tell her own story. Okay, thank you, Hardcore H. But Justice League, it was a complete disaster, and it was not a film that anybody would want to see. It was a film that really just fell apart. But Wonder Woman was a bright spot and an indicator to us all that with the right director, DC cinematic films could be great, because thanks to Patty Jenkins' brilliant vision, she was able to make a film, as I saw it, for the first 85, 90 minutes or so, the first two acts of the film, up to the last 15 minutes. That film was right on par with Superman 1978 in capturing the spirit of who Diana Prince was and who Princess Diana was, and her love and concern for people. It was a great film to introduce us to Wonder Woman, and it did a great job of updating those concepts while still being in the time frame of World War I. We saw all of the elements that were the character on screen, and Patty Jenkins did a great job of making Wonder Woman come to life on screen. Unfortunately, we got that Justice League movie, and that torpedoed all of that momentum. But there were lessons I thought were learned from that Wonder Woman movie that Warner Brothers could have applied, and it looked like Warner Brothers was just getting ready to get back on track when I saw the trailer for Aquaman, which showed really great promise, because the visuals on that film were strong, the story in that film was strong, and we got a great, fun action adventure story. And that film was extremely successful. It made over $1 billion, and it showed again that DC Comics characters could carry a movie, and it showed that these characters themselves could be up there with the Marvel Cinematic Universe if they were executed properly. And it seemed like the further away they got from Zack Snyder's dark vision, the more these characters started to come to life. And it looked like on the film side, things were starting to build some momentum, because after Wonder Woman and Aquaman, we started to see with the Shazam movie, another movie that really captured the spirit of the characters and was a lot of fun to watch. And what was really sad about Shazam was a lot of people didn't go see that movie, but it was very promising. It had a lot of fun, and it really, again, captured the spirit of the DC Comics characters and really brought them to life on screen. Now, what I'm seeing there, as related to DC Comics and their film division, is that they just keep getting in their way and they keep tripping over their own feet. And one of the things that they do to trip over their own feet is they keep trying to shoehorn this old 1990s story model into the 21st century. Now, in the days of the late 1980s, with the success of 1989's Batman, there there was this dark story model that worked well for Tim Burton during the late 80s and the early 90s, but the attempts to try to bring that model back seem to not work here in the 21st century because the audience has changed. But Warner Brothers executives, they insist on trying to bring back this model, and that's why they seem to always wind up tripping over their own feet. Now, this decision to try to keep bringing this model back, this is where I see the problem with the Joker movie. And with this Joker trailer, I see another disaster right on par with Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and Justice League, and an attempt to try to go back to the old, dark, dreary, depressing model. And this recent decision to go out here and cast Robert Pattinson has me scratching my head and wondering if Warner Brothers executives are on fentanyl, because only a person on fentanyl would go out of their way to cast Robert Pattinson as Batman, because your Robert Pattinson has, again, absolutely no screen presence at all. And when it comes down to the role of Batman, he is an absolutely terrible fit. I'd say that he is just as bad as when they went out of their way to cast Halle Berry as Catwoman and wound up torpedoing the career of Patoff, the filmmaker, as a result, because that Catwoman movie, which did not feature Selena Kyle, but featured Halle Berry playing Patience Phillips, that film was a complete cinematic disaster. And when I look at the whole idea of casting Robert Pattinson, I just look at it as a huge mistake. Now, I know there are people who are making the argument that this could be similar to Michael Keaton, but when it came down to Michael Keaton was an extremely underrated actor with an amazing range. And because he was an underrated actor, many people didn't see the many nuances in his performances. Because when I would watch Michael Keaton performances, they always had these little nuances, especially like even with the worst roles he's done, like Mr. Mom and many other films, he really put little things into the role that really brought the character to life. But when it comes down to Robert Pattinson, I don't really see any sort of nuance as related to his performance. I just see a very flat and wooden actor. So I don't really think that he's the right man for this role. Plus, he just doesn't have the build for this role. Michael Keaton, a lot of people would say, oh, he wouldn't really fit who Batman was. But in addition to his nuanced acting, he also was he wasn't the most fit looking guy. But if you compare a Jim O'Paro comic panel to Michael Keaton in Batman 89 or Batman Returns, you can see that they almost look alike. Because when you look at the 89 Batman and you look at a Jim O'Paro comic panel from that era, you will see that they exactly look alike. So it looks, he looked like Bruce Wayne did during that era, and his presence was very similar to Bruce Wayne in that era. So Michael Keaton did an amazing job playing that part, and that was something that people, they underestimated about him. And that's the thing, he was supposed to be like a shadowy figure, and that also played well into it. So that all fit into who Batman was in 89. And I don't see that type of thing with Robert Pattinson because he doesn't have that many movies under his belt. Michael Keaton had a lot of classics like Night Shift and Beetlejuice and other films, and Clean and Sober. He had a range of performances. So he showed us that he had the talent and ability to play the part. But with Robert Pattinson, I'm just scratching my head about Robert Pattinson playing the part. And it just shows that every time DC starts to get a bit of momentum going forward, what happens is they wind up tripping over their own feet and becoming their own worst enemy. And the big problem was with DC is that they are their own worst enemy, and that being their own worst enemy is the thing that keeps them from being competitive not only with Marvel Studios but with other independent filmmakers who go out here, because even fan films are better than many of these DC films. And when I look at these DC films again, they just keep making the mistakes that mess them up, because you just don't cast Robert Pattinson and you just don't make a Joker movie if these superhero movies are doing well and you want to go out here and make big money. You don't keep making things over and over again. Because another issue I have is they keep making Batman movies, and we've already had Christian Bale, as I see it, play one of the definitive Batmans for the early 2000s, and that was one of his signature roles. So, and then you had Michael Keaton in the 80s, and as I see it, we really don't really need a Batman movie just yet, because we just had Ben Affleck play Batman. So it's time to really explore other aspects of the DC universe before we go over to your Batman once again. And when I look at the Joker movie, that one has a really weak story. And I look at the Batman and the whole design of it. If you're starting out with this whole Robert Pattinson, it's just not going to work. Yeah, I remember Val Kilmer and George Clooney Supremo, and I'd love to forget George Clooney. Now, Val Kilmer, he did try, but he was done in by Akiva Goldsman and Joel Schumacher, who wanted to try to camp up things, and their vision was absolutely ridiculous. And that's the thing that tripped up Val Kilmer. He could have actually played Batman, but they messed it up. Now, when I look at your DC film division, I just wonder, again, why can't they get it right? Because they have the financial resources to make great superhero movies, and they have the talent out there that can be used to make great superhero movies, and they have the visual effects division to make great superhero visual effects, because we saw that with Wonder Woman, and we saw that with many of these other DC films. But the big problem is, as I see it, they just don't have that visionary to helm the course, similar to what your Kevin Feige did back in 2008. He was able to have this grand vision for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but when it comes down to DC, they have never really had that grand visionary to lay that foundation for building a foundation for DC's characters on screen. And that's one of the reasons why their films struggle so much, is because they don't have that visionary to set a tone or a direction. And whenever you have a talent, they really don't really get the support that they need, or they go out here, in many cases, they hire grossly unqualified people. Like when I heard Ava DuVernay was going to do New Gods, and I said to myself, this woman is not a good fit. She's just has not really done that many fantasy films. And the fantasy film she did, A Wrinkle in Time, was a colossal failure due to her attitude about the film. She didn't care about the quality of what she was putting on screen. She didn't care about the quality of what she was producing. She had no vision for what she wanted to produce. And that's why A Wrinkle in Time was a complete disaster. And I look at that film, and it was like she didn't even care about anything on there. And her attitude was one of the things that torpedoed that film and really made it almost next to impossible for us to ever see another black movie ever again. Because when it came down to black fantasy and science fiction, Black Panther would have opened the door. But then just as soon as it opened, here came Ava DuVernay, and she closed it. And I believe if she comes to New Gods, she may actually destroy the entire DC brand overall, because it's been struggling for a while, because they don't really make consistent quality films. And then I look at DC, and they have a great catalog of characters, and it seems like on their animated division, guys like Bruce Timm, they can make these characters come to life, and they've done a great job of capturing the spirit. Guys like Paul Dini, Bruce Timm, I think Rick Burchett, back over on the animated division, they have made characters on screen that are true to the spirit, true to the story, and true to the source material. And those were some of the best interpretations of those characters. And even with the Milestone division with Static Shock, the cartoon, they did a great job of adapting that character. And it was a lot of fun seeing that character come to life. Now, Static has a huge base, but when it comes down to your DC and Warner Brothers, it seems like they don't want to capitalize on your milestone characters who have already proven with Static that they can retain a big audience and they can go out here and continue to build an audience, because Static was a #1 cartoon from 2002 to 2004, and it was one of the most popular characters out there, and people want a Static movie, but it seems like Warner Brothers doesn't want to go out here and put the money into a Static film, a film that probably could be as big as Aquaman and make $1 billion for DC and Warner Brothers. It could make them some big money, but they just don't want to do it. But again, it goes back to what the big problem with DC and Warner Brothers is, that they just don't have a vision for what they want to do. And because they don't have a vision, they can't set a direction. Now, the other thing that Patrick, I don't know who could play a young Static Shock. It's just you would have to do open casting. I saw a fan film by somebody where they did Black Lightning, and they had a good actor for that one. But it would have to be a new guy to play Static Shock. A long time ago, I said Jaden Smith could have done it, but the way Jaden Smith has been acting, all effeminized, it would put a tarnish on the role and it would really betray Dwayne McDuffie's legacy. And that's something that I wouldn't want to see when they make the film. I want to see something that's true to the story and something that honors the late Dwayne McDuffie. So I would really want to get a newcomer and have them play Static Shock. But when it comes down to DC's television division, I see how they have been really tripping over their feet as well, because with Greg Berlanti, it's clear to me that he's the wrong person to be in charge of DC television. And I recently got a chance to take a look at the Batwoman trailer. I'm going to be talking about the Batwoman trailer in a minute, Rapper 10,000. And this trailer is something that's really sad, because when I look at this trailer for Batwoman, I literally see history repeating itself. Now, I don't know if many of you guys ever heard of the television show Birds of Prey. Now, Birds of Prey, this came out very early in the WB's attempts to make superhero shows, and Birds of Prey and Batwoman are literally the exact same show. And the thing that destroys Batwoman as a show is the whole foundation of trying to take Batman out of Gotham City. Now, a lot of people are talking about how Batwoman is an SJW show, and yes, it is an SJW show, just like Supergirl has become a SJW show, which is designed to promote feminism and lesbian propaganda. And your Batwoman is the exact same thing. But when you take a critical look at your Batwoman, it literally follows the exact same failed model of Birds of Prey. And what torpedoed Birds of Prey was the announcement in the first couple of minutes of the introduction saying that Batman left Gotham City. Now, any comic book fan who has been reading Batman since the first issue knows that Batman does not leave Gotham City. when it comes down to Batman, he took an oath to protect Gotham City, and he swore that oath because he did not want anyone to suffer the same fate that he suffered when his parents were murdered in Crime Alley. So this is core to the Batman character, but they're going to tell us that Batman is going to leave Gotham City. He's going to abandon Gotham City, and that is completely out of character for the Batman character. Bruce would never leave Gotham City. Yes, he has gone on business trips. However, he is dedicated to his mission that he entrusted others to go out here and carry on in his stead if he has to go either on a mission to a faraway country or if he wanted to go out in space on a mission with the Justice League. He would always delegate his authority to someone like Batgirl or Nightwing, or when he was alive, Azrael, someone who he trusted to protect Gotham City, because Batman made an oath on as related to the death of his parents. And to have you telling the many of the DC Comics fans who know who Batman is, he would never leave and abandon Gotham City. And that was one of the things that really disgusted me about the Batwoman trailer, is them trying to say that Bruce would abdicate and just abandon Gotham City. I mean, even in the show Batman Beyond, when Bruce was elderly and even couldn't fight anymore, he even made efforts to try to watch out for Gotham City. And he said that in the episode with Bane and the Slappers, that he kept a watch over people like Bane. And so we know that Bruce, even though he was incapacitated, still made efforts to look out and protect Gotham City. So when I look at that, it's just out of character for Bruce Wayne. And it's a way for the producers to go out here and push their identity politics with this Batwoman character by trying to devalue a man in order to elevate a woman. And that was one of the things that really irked me about that whole Batwoman trailer, is that they think that in order to create a strong woman, you have to tear down a man. And as a writer of heroines like Isis and Eastine, I know that I don't have to tear down a man to build up a woman. You can have a strong heroine standing right at the side of a man. And I have done that with books like Eastine, The Sands of Time, and books like The Temptation of John Haynes and Man Who Rules the World and Isis, Bride of Dracula. And all those stories, I have gone out of my way to show you that it is possible to create a story where the heroine can be strong right at the side of the hero, and I don't have to tear down one in order to build up the other. And another story I did this was in Escape from Transylvania, where I showed Isis and John Haynes working together. So this is something that can be done, but because these producers want to push a feminist agenda, they believe they have to tear down men in order to build up women. And that's why these things like Batwoman never really catch on. Yes, those are Ninja Turtles in the behind me, Devon, and those are vintage Voltron Deluxes. But that's something that I find it irksome as it relates to that Batwoman trailer. That's one of the things I found irksome, was the tearing down of a man in order to build up a heroine. And again, I don't do this in my work, and it's just sad that they do it in theirs. Now, let's see if I can find it. For example, with The Temptation of John Haynes, see, the man and the woman are equal, and I can make that type of story. But again, why can't DC and Warner Brothers? I mean, they have millions of dollars more than I do, billions of dollars more. And I do books on a shoestring budget, and I can go out here and show you a strong woman standing right at the side of a strong man, but your DC can't do it, and said that they can't do it with their properties. Now, there were other elements of that Batwoman trailer that really angered me, and that was seeing this Kate Kane going out here and disrespecting Wayne Enterprises. And that was another thing that really irritated me, because when it came down to Wayne Enterprises, it's as I see it, something that needs to be respected, because this was Thomas Wayne's legacy, and Thomas Wayne wanted to protect Gotham City, and that's where Bruce got his core values. And this woman, she just wants to come in and take over. And I found that to be really disrespectful to Bruce Wayne, and I found it to be disrespectful to Thomas Wayne as characters. But they want to make the strong woman and saying that she's going to go out here and bulldoze these men. And what she's doing is turning off many of the male comic book viewers who read those comics. And they're sadly, as they turn off those comic book viewers, what they're doing is making the exact same mistake that the producers of Birds of Prey made. I think about, what is it, 2002 or 2003? It was around the Smallville era that they made Birds of Prey, and they wanted to go out here and throw Batman's legacy under the bus. And when they did that, that's what led to Birds of Prey winding up getting canceled. And this woman is so bold, she's going to go into the Batcave, and it looks like they have the son of Lucius Fox or something there. And the way they've portrayed the son of Lucius Fox, or Lucius Fox himself, that was irritating to me, because one, Greg Berlanti has decided once again to emasculate a black man, proving my point about Greg Berlanti having issues with black men. So he has decided to emasculate this black man by showing that he has no real power and authority. And this female walks all over this black man and has no respect for him. And this was something. Oh, what's up, Morpheus? I'm glad to see you here. I haven't seen you in a long time. Morpheus used to live in my old neighborhood. But when it came down to that, I was really disgusted by that. Here we have Greg Berlanti going out of his way to degrade yet another black man in a show by having him play the Alfred role. So basically, this is John Diggle all over again. He has been made into the butler for this Batwoman, and I'm guessing he's going to be asexualized or emasculated in some way, because when I look at the beta male way he was portrayed, this was something that they, I believe, intentionally did, because when it comes down to your Greg Berlanti, he seems to have a serious issue as related to black men, black manhood, and black masculinity. And this was something I saw in that Batwoman trailer presented to me, that they literally had emasculated your black man. And she's walking around the Batcave, and it's like, I look at that as another affront, because again, Alfred in Batman would have gone out of his way to protect the Batcave, and even Bruce would have gone out of his way to protect the Batcave. So when I looked at that, that was again out of character for your Batman. He would not have left the Batcave like that. So this woman just rolls up in the Batcave, and the only person he has guarding the Batcave and all of the secrets of Batman and the legend of Batman is going to be some beta male butler. So I look at that as another slap in the face, basically saying that men are stupid and men are incompetent, and another middle finger up at men who created Batman and the whole legacy of Batman. And then they go into the Batcave, and she decides to tell Mr. Beta Male, I want the suit. So basically, she wants to be a man. And that's the other thing I found annoying about this Batwoman trailer, was it was like this woman wanted to be a man. And that's something that I find to really be an affront, because you're going to call this show Batwoman, and she's going to try to be a man. And when they do that, basically they are saying that women have no real traits of their own, and that's and one of the things that really annoyed me about that trailer was that it devalued what made women great. So it says in order for a woman to be considered valuable, she needs to be like a man, and that's a real insult to women. Now, when I write women like Isis and Isis and Easteen, I always try to celebrate what is great about being a woman. And I know that there are many positive traits in women, and it's great to celebrate what's great about being a woman. And you can pick up these two books that are coming out. These are the 2019 catalog right now. This is Isis All That Glitters, the 2019 Isis series book. And this is Easteen Goddess of, the Easteen series book. And both of these are available in paperback, and they're also available on Kindle Unlimited. So if you want to have Kindle Unlimited, you can read both of these for free. And you can read other Isis series books like Imitation of Life and Escape from Transylvania for free if you have Kindle Unlimited. And if you have a Kindle reader, you can get these for the price of a comic book. But I'm going to get back to the topic. But I look at it and it's like you're trying to say that in order for a woman to be strong, she needs to be like a man. And that's something that I really found to be really insulting, because when it comes down to women, they have a lot of great traits, and we're devaluing what's great about being a woman. And it just shows how that these people who want to make this whole strong woman narrative, they are following the same dysfunctional model that was presented in Captain Marvel, because we saw in that trailer the same thing about the whole her being a hero. And that's something that, again, was also really insulting, because what makes someone a hero isn't their gender, it is their internal character, because the things that make a hero is who they are on the inside and what they want to represent on the inside. And that was something I always put in my work, whether it be Isis and Easteen series books, or books like Spellbound, where featuring the Matilda Crowley character as a heroine. Whenever I do stories with heroines, I always make an effort to show you that it's who they are on the inside, and it's the traits that they take on the inside that leads to their actions on the outside. So that's Luciano. I am looking at the chats, but I'm trying to make my points. But when I look at it, it's like the traits that we have here they're talking about gender, they're talking about identity politics, and that's not what I want to see in a heroine. Now, I've talked about this in previous live streams, the things that craft a strong heroine, and we're not seeing that with this Batwoman trailer. In fact, if anything, what your Greg Berlanti has done is he has decided to go full SJW on this whole Batwoman trailer, just like he went SJW on Supergirl. Now, Supergirl was a show I was watching regularly, and the first season was top notch, especially the Flash episode, which was the highest rated episode of Supergirl. And it was a lot of fun seeing that episode, because it was just heroes being heroes, taking on the bad guys and saving the day. But after season 2, we started to see the Berlanti curse come in, because your Greg Berlanti decided he was going to push all of this identity politics into Supergirl, and Supergirl became unwatchable because it was more about Kara's sister, and then it became about feminism and pushing the whole strong woman narrative. And these are things that we don't go to see superhero shows for. We go to see superhero shows to see good guys taking on bad guys, but we're not seeing good guys taking on bad guys on your um, Supergirl, and that's why the show's ratings tanked. I'm gonna look through the chats now. Bombor, I have not seen The Losers. Um, Spirit of Yusuke 008. I did see Wonder Woman, but I'm waiting for Aquaman's on DVD, so I'm gonna try to get that. I just ordered Into the Spider-Verse on DVD, and I'm gonna be watching and reviewing that in another video. I'm hoping to get Aquaman soon. But if you guys want to donate to the super chat, you guys can give me the money, and I'll go buy the Aquaman movie on DVD and watch it. Because I plan on doing a review of that one as well. So, but if you guys donate to the super chat, I can go out and buy that real quick. Yeah, I know about Superman in Action Comics #1. Sup, Daryl Eiffel. I heard they were doing Batman Beyond, Patrick, but I don't know who they're going to cast in it. I would love to see a strong male and a female in a show Supremo. That's something I would love to see. I mean, I do. If I can do it, the TV shows can do it too, and the movies can do it too. But I do it all the time. But I don't know why they can't do it. So, what I see with them is what they're trying to do with the Batwoman is they're trying to cater to a female audience, but the mistake they're making with your Batwoman is they don't understand that girls aren't attracted to these masculine women. What they want to see are soft, feminine women, and they want to see women who have this strength of character. And that's what I put in my stories, and I don't really have a problem selling them. And that's what we saw in Wonder Woman, and that's why Wonder Woman was successful. So people want to see strong women, but they want to see things that are strong as related to their internal character. They don't want to see things about a woman trying to put on a man's role. And when I look at that Batwoman, it really reminded me so much of Captain Marvel and what they were trying to do with Captain Marvel in the comics, in that they were trying to masculinize her and make her a masculine. Because when I look at your Kate Kane in this movie, in the TV show, she was just like a man. The mannish haircut, the mannish body language, the mannish behavior. And that's not what people are going to want to see in a superhero movie, because when it comes down, not superhero movie, but when it comes down to women, men want softness. Men want things that are attractive to them. They want a woman to be a woman, and they want to see what's great about being a woman. And that's what these shows like Supergirl and Batwoman and Captain Marvel aren't giving viewers. They're not giving us the woman as strong from a feminine perspective. They are giving us a strong woman from a masculine perspective. And when you do that, you wind up turning off a good chunk of the male viewers and even a good chunk of the female viewers, because when it comes down to men and women, there are certain traits that people want to see. They want to see, like Zoomer Hub is saying, they want to see that wiseness, they want to see that that internal character, and they want to see a woman who is attractive to both men and women, because girls, they like attractive girls because they want to have something to emulate to get the attention of men, and men want a attractive woman not only on the outside, but they want someone who's going to be, as I've stated in previous live streams, somebody who's going to be a girlfriend or a wife to them, and girls want somebody who they can be a friend with. Zoomer makes a good point. Yeah, they want that wisdom. They want the ability to have learned something and grown. I mean, that's what the Wonder Woman movie was all about. When you look at the Wonder Woman movie, she had this idea about war. And the whole thing is that the movie was about teaching her the wisdom that war wasn't what she thought it was. Luciano, we have a black Superman. His name is Icon, and he's a part of Milestone Media. So if they want to do a Superman movie, you do it, and it's called Icon. So yeah, strength and wisdom aren't the same, but the whole thing is, it's about, that all relates to internal character. But what they want to do is create this whole masculine woman who's going to be strong like a man physically, but women are emotional, and because they are emotional, their traits are more internal, not external. And this is one of the things that many of these not viewers, but producers don't understand. But that's what the producers don't understand about the about women, and that's why it doesn't work. Yeah, the Valzad Superman, but I don't really see him as, I see Icon as the black Superman, and I think Icon would sell better than Valzad. I think Valzad would alienate people because Superman's story is a part of American history. He is an American icon, and we need to leave his story his story. So when I think of a character of a black Superman that would be commercially viable, I would think of Icon. So if you want to do a Superman type story, you have to do it as Icon. So that's the movie I want to see. I want to see the Milestone characters really get their due, and they're not really getting their due. And when it comes down to black characters, they don't get their due when it comes down to CW as well, because what they did to Mr. Terrific was egregious. I mean, he was the world's third smartest man. He was one of the most popular characters at DC Comics, and he was brilliant on a level of Batman, and he was literally like DC's Black Panther. So what they do to him on Arrow is make him into a gay, bumbling, stumbling idiot. They emasculate him and put him in a beta male role so that Oliver Queen can appear to be more masculine, when in the comics, Mr. Terrific is on a similar level as the Green Arrow, and maybe even be smarter and more athletic than the Green Arrow. But what they did to him was absolutely egregious. Elijah asks a very good question. Do I think the grounded DC heroes are a problem? I don't think that the grounded DC heroes are a problem. I think the way they are executed is a problem, because when it comes down to the DC heroes, the big problem with the DC television division, the film division, and even to an aspect the animation division, is that they have all the elements, but they can't execute it. Now, I make a great metaphor to that, and it's just like giving a bunch of McDonald's workers gourmet food and telling them to go cook. And it seems like these people, they get all of these great characters in this great catalog, but because they lack the skills to understand how to make these characters work, they wind up making a mess time after time again. And that's something that I see with your DC as related to their characters. I don't see things done right. Rapper 10,000 asks, do I think Barbara Gordon could have been Batwoman? Yeah, I think they could have done that, because Batgirl was growing and evolving, and she was getting ready to go do something, but then the writers decided not to do anything with her after Crisis of Infinite Earths. What they did was decide to make her retire, because Barbara Gordon was in her I think, 20s or so. And she was a congresswoman. She was a major part of very intelligent as related to things in the comics, and I think she could have evolved into a Batwoman because if Dick Grayson could grow up to become a man and become Nightwing, then Barbara Gordon could have become Batwoman. But I think the reason why they didn't do anything with her was because they probably thought Batman's world was too crowded, and right now, I believe it's too crowded right now. There's just too many heroes, so they wanted to cut things down back in 1987 or 88, and that's what they wanted to do because they wanted to just be Batman, Robin, Nightwing, and that they wanted that to be but that's what they want to do. They wanted to keep it tight, and it was a good decision. But then they brought in Azrael, but they brought in Azrael for a point because they wanted to show that not anyone could be Batman, and that the mission of Batman was Bruce's, and it took somebody who was close to Bruce, like a Terry McGinnis, to understand it. Now, when I look at Black Heroes again, Mr. Terrific, the way they mishandled him on Arrow, that was egregious, and the way Black Lightning was mishandled on Greg Berlanti's show, that was also egregious as well. Now, they made the Black Lightning show to give us a black superhero, but the big problem with Black Lightning is the show was filled with all of this identity politics, and Jefferson Pierce has pretty much been emasculated in his own show. In season 2, they took him out of his role as a principal and put this beta white male in there. And then you have the lesbian daughter, and then you have a daughter dating a thug. And the show literally was no longer about a black man looking to take care of his family and protect his family. It was about this black man who was pushed to the background of his own show. And that was something that I found to really be irritating because the show is titled Black Lightning, but we don't really see him really doing much in his own show. And he's been overshadowed because Greg Berlanti, again, just does not like heterosexual black men. He doesn't like heterosexual black masculinity. And he doesn't like the idea of a black man being in a leadership role or an authority figure role, because those roles make him extremely uncomfortable. So he's always pushing that I think Thunder, who's the lesbian daughter, all the time in his show, and it's literally like the Thunder show, and it's not anything to do with Black Lightning. So that's one of the things that makes that show really irritating. And all these shows that they're pushing with the identity politics, from what I've seen, the ratings have been in the toilet. Like they said, Supergirl's ratings were what's up, Mo Lee? Glad to see you here. His ratings have been at an all-time low. Supergirl's ratings fell way off from the early days of the Supergirl when it premiered. And I never saw the many episodes of the Unit, Rapper 10,000, but I'm sure that they did have a good father and daughter team on there. I've seen good black fathers on other shows, but when it comes down to these shows, their ratings are at an all-time low. So Supergirl, ever since they have pushed the identity politics and the feminism, people haven't really watched that show. And Black Lightning, the people haven't been watching that show. And both shows are on the brink of cancellation numbers, but the CW still brings them back because when it comes down to the CW, they want to continue pushing this identity politics. And from the looks of that Batwoman trailer, I'm looking at another show that's not going to do well. So the way things look right now, it's looking like SJW Sunday. And if that's going to be what Sunday night is going to be for the CW, then I think I'm going to find something else to do on Sunday night. Because if you're going to go out here and try to destroy Batman's legend in one show and tarnish Superman's legend in another, then viewers have no real interest in watching this, especially people who grew up with these characters and know what these characters are all about. If you're going to tell me that things that I know aren't true, like Batman leaving Gotham City, then I'm gonna have to not watch this show. And again, what's really sad is that it seems like Warner Brothers just hasn't learned anything in 17 years. And that's really sad because Birds of Prey showed us that. Thank you, Smiley Man. I'm glad to see you here. But it seems like Warner Brothers has not learned anything in 17 years. I mean, Birds of Prey was what, 2002, 2003? And here we are with the exact same mistake being made 17, 18 years later. And no one at Warner Brothers actually connects the dots to see the vicious cycle going on as related to their television division, just like they can't connect the dots as related to their film division or the dots as related to their publishing division. So there's clearly a problem with Warner Brothers and DC Comics as related to the executives there, because you keep making the exact same mistake and expecting a different result. So that's the definition of insanity, because the definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing and expecting a different result. And it looks like for me, as it relates to the DC side and Warner Brothers, they expect to do the exact same things and expect a different result. Because when I look at that Batwoman trailer, I saw the Birds of Prey all over again, and I see another big flop coming to them. Now, when it comes down to the visuals and the set pieces, yes, they are very nice, but the story they're presenting is insulting to the audience. Because when I saw your Kate Kane going in there and disrespecting Batman, disrespecting Batman's lore, and talking about how she was going to make everything better because she was a woman. Basically, she was putting up a middle finger up at every comic fan out there who has ever picked up a Batman comic book or watched a Batman TV show or a Batman movie from the 1960s, 1967, I believe, or 68, all the way from 89. And all of those fans who have been fans of Batman for over 50 years, that's what those Batwoman trailer did. It basically told all those people, screw you, we're going to go out here and make our story. And that story is completely disrespectful to Batman and Bob Kane and Bill Finger, and a complete insult to the legacy of the character. I would have to say the best legacy done to Batman was Batman Beyond. Batman Beyond showed great respect for Batman's lore while adding something new and fresh to the character. Now, I know back in 98, there was a huge uproar regarding Batman Beyond. A lot of people were upset about old Bruce Wayne. They were upset about Terry McGinnis. And when I saw that episode in 1999, I was really impressed by it because I had taped it. And after I watched it, I was very impressed by it. I loved all of the original designs. I loved all of the original concepts. And I loved all of the colors. But most importantly, I loved the fact that they stayed true to the spirit of Batman and the ending of Bruce Wayne and his motivations for stopping to be Batman. They were extremely on point because it started with a gun and it ended with a gun. And we understood why Bruce stopped being Batman. And it opened the door for Terry McGinnis. And the way they opened the door for Terry McGinnis was very organic. And it showed that he had the same passion for protecting Gotham City. And he respected Batman and Batman's lore. Now, the episode that cements Batman Beyond as a great series was the fourth episode, Meltdown, or the third episode, Meltdown. If you watch Meltdown, you're going to become a Batman Beyond fan, because that's the episode where we have Mr. Freeze come in. And when they brought Mr. Freeze in and they connected the continuity, that was the thing that cemented it. Now, the second episode was a blackout with ink that was, or was it the third? Because I have it on DVD, but I haven't watched it in a while. Because that was my show. I taped it, but I had lost like the second season of it. But Batman Beyond it did an amazing job of bringing us a new version of Batman while paying respect to the old Batman, the animated series, and the Batman mythology. And it didn't go out of its way to express contempt for the history of Batman. It went out of its way to respect the history of Batman. And that's why it's a beloved series by many people out here. I remember being about, 25 or so, and I love that series. I would go out of my way to tape every episode because it was just that good. And it showed how Terry was learning from Bruce and he was passing on his knowledge. And that was something that when I look at the Batwoman trailer, it shows, again, no respect, because they want to make this character express her contempt for the patriarchy by showing how her is going to be a hero. And that's not how people go out here and be heroes. Heroes go out of their way to honor those who came before them, just like Wally West went out of his way to honor Barry Allen. And his reason for becoming the Flash was because he wanted to honor Barry and everything that Barry had taught him. And that was a level of showing respect to Barry Allen for teaching him the life skills, not only to be a hero, but teaching him the life skills to become a man. And that's why Wally West is considered one of the, surpassed Barry Allen, because it's what a father does for a son. And in this case, he was an uncle, but it was about a man teaching another man and preparing another man to go and be his own man. And what he did was honor Barry's legacy by not only honoring his legacy, but then he went on to make his own legacy as the Flash. But Molly, I remember that about Bruce Timm. Yeah, he was trying to force that romantic relationship. I wasn't a fan of that because but that was just something you tolerated because there were other things that in the Batman animated series that were great, but the romantic relationship really wasn't there. It was always between Dick and Barbara. But I just found that to be out of place. And he put it in the Killing Joke, I think, but it just didn't work. Rapper 10,000, yeah, Return of the Joker. I have that on DVD. And that movie was one of the best Batman movies I ever saw. I love the way Terry flipped the game on the Joker. I mean, that was one of my favorite scenes in Return of the Joker, was when he flipped the game on the Joker. And that was one of the things that inspired a scene in Temptation of John Haynes, where John Haynes flips the game on Eastine. I got that from Return of the Joker when Terry flipped the game on him. And that's where I got the idea for that. Yeah, Ink had a great design, Daryl Phil. I wish they had done more with her, but they gave her like 3 or 4 episodes, and they gave her really good episodes, though. Elijah, I don't think angst offsets them, because Superman and the Flash, because when I was reading Wally West, he was dealing with the loss of Barry Allen. He dealt with that for about 50 issues of The Flash, and the angst doesn't offset them. It actually adds to the character and shows us a dimension to them. And Superman, he had some moments there. I mean, I remember watching The Late Mr. Kent. That was a story that inspired me to write Isis, Death of a Theta story, where Isis has to give up her secret identity as Andrea Thomas Robinson, and it showed how she was like really connected to this identity. And it was a story that I mean, Superman does deal with angst in that he needs Clark, and he needs that in order to connect with people. So that was something that really made me think. I mean, those were some good Superman animated episodes that could really make you think. Um, that was an underrated series that people really don't really pay much attention to, but it's one that I could find some gems in there. Going to leave a link to Isis Death of a Theta. You guys can look at that one. That one is free on Smashwords, and you can read that one for free. Zoomer Hub makes a good point. Yeah, being a nerd doesn't make you a boy; it just makes you socially awkward. And yeah, people do not really understand what being a man is, because when it comes down to our society, we have minimized the value of men in society. We have minimized what it means to be a man. And we have women out here trying to define manhood and masculinity. And that's why we have a lot of people not understanding that. Zoomer Hub, I think you should really pick up my book, The Man Crisis. This one talks about the issues that are leading to a lot of men that are struggling because they don't really understand what it means to be a man, because they have learned manhood from women. And that's one of the things that I'm seeing, that a lot of men, they think that being a man is something as related to women, but they're not trying to learn about being a man from other men. My thoughts on Watchmen TV series. Well, when it comes down to the Watchmen TV series, Bombor, it is absolutely terrible. The Watchmen TV series has nothing from the comic books. It has nothing from the. It's just a terrible series, and it just should have never been done. Saint Saint Nick 69. Yeah, Andrea Thomas Robinson is a homage to the television ISIS, and it's a homage to the ISIS television series. That's why I gave the character that name. And the Andrea Thomas Robinson version of ISIS is featured in Death of a Theta, and she's also featured in ISIS Imitation of Life. This is the identity that the ISIS character had during the golden age of comics and the era of Jim Crow. I think you can pick that book up on Amazon.com. And this was the identity ISIS had in the 20th century. And I wanted to pay homage to Joanna Cameron's ISIS, and I wanted to pay homage to the 1970s TV series ISIS with that identity. So that's why I gave her the name Andrea Thomas Robinson, because in the first ISIS book, she married a man named Joe Robinson, but the Andrea Thomas part was that homage to that character. D. Woodward, do I have a favorite episode of Batman, the animated series? It's hard to say. It's been a while since I've seen them, but one of my favorites is the Two-Face episode, because of the dark tragedy of it, and the Hardak episode. Both of those I like those. But I enjoy the overall series. Thank you, Zoomer Hub. I've been trying to find a way to take care of myself, because I haven't been able to find a full-time job, but this was my side hustle. So I'm trying to get things done as related to my business. And if you guys I would really appreciate if you guys would go out here and pick up some of the books on the SJS Direct imprint, because when it comes down to heroines, I go out of my way to give people the heroines I believe readers want, because when it comes down to people, they don't want this identity politics. They want to see what makes a woman great. They want to see those internal character traits as related to wisdom, integrity, character, those internal character traits, because that's what men are looking for in a woman. And we're not getting that from shows like Batwoman, because they want to push this feminist agenda, where we have this, where the woman is trying to be a man, not understanding that when you try to push that type of character, you alienate most of your core audience because they don't want to see a woman in the man's role. And this is why many of the comic books at so-called Marvel, SJW Marvel Comics, like your Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel, your Squirrel Girl, and your Captain Marvel, sell so poorly. And this is why these books struggle to maintain an audience. Supremo, yes, I am planning on getting the DC streaming service. I'm just trying to wait for this, trying to get my money together to get it, because I'm planning on getting it because I want to look at this Justice League cartoon by Paul Dini and Bruce Timm, the new Justice League cartoon. And I might take a look at this Doom Patrol, but after hearing about the black men in dresses, I really have no real interest in watching it because I don't want to see black men degraded any further. Yeah, I hate that too, Daryl. Phil, that, yeah, you can't use ISIS, because even here on YouTube, whenever I put the name ISIS on one of the on things, they demonetize the video, not understanding that the name is related to an Egyptian goddess. It is not related to a terrorist organization, and that whole terrorist organization's original name was ISIL, and they're sitting there and they think that everything's about propaganda for them, but it isn't. It's about the Egyptian goddess, and it's also about that classic 1970s TV show. Luciano, I don't think we're ever going to see a DC crossover with the MCU, because the MCU is headed towards SJWville, and DC just can't get itself into gear. Every time DC starts to get some legs with movies like Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Shazam, they go out here and give us Joker and the Batman and take 2 steps back. And Bombor, that's sad. I might take a look at Young Justice. I mean, if I have a sub for a month, I might take a look at that, but that means I can't make as many videos. So you might get 1 video a day instead of 3. But I might do that. So I'll go out here and I'll watch the series. I'll do reviews of them, but it'll be 1 video a day instead of 3. So, but then again, when I do 1 video a day, I get more views. So. Yeah, because Kevin Feige, Supremo makes a good point, because with Kevin Feige, he was hostile towards the Netflix division, and he erased them from the MCU. Even though they were part of the MCU, he removed them. So us seeing a Marvel DC crossover, that means we're going to need a different visionary running things. So what hero do I think deserves their own movie next? I would love to see Nightwing get a movie, Luciano. I think that would be a very good movie to do. In fact, I would have rather have seen a Nightwing series than this Batwoman, because I think a Nightwing series would do very well. I think Nightwing would be perfect, because it would be about him coming out of Batman's shadow, and it would allow him to actually take the place of Arrow in something like the Berlantiverse, because your Arrow, if you're going to end his series, Nightwing would be awesome to put in that spot, and it would be a lot better than this Titan series from what I've heard. Thank you, Dark Gable 831. I'm glad you like The Temptation of John Haynes. And yeah, I do promote Omega Black because Chris L. Brown has done a great job with Omega Black. It's a great @Black manga, and the reason why I promote it is because I want to see great Black comic books find an audience, because back in the days of Milestone, I was always going out here buying those books because I wanted to see Black superheroes, and I want to see another Black character be a success. So when I see brothers going out here making comics, and I see that they're good, I go out of my way to promote them, because I want to see the needle moved on those books. And Chris has done an amazing job with Omega Black, and he's doing a Kickstarter right now to get the funding for the 3rd issue of Omega Black. And I don't know if I can get the link up, but in the chat, but I've put in a pledge for Chris's Omega Black, and I urge everybody to put in a see if I can get, because the thing is that but I try to put the links in the chat because I want everybody to go out here and support this great manga. I mean, it's very well done. Chris has done an amazing job on it. He's got a Kickstarter going for it right now, and he needs the support. I want to see this project get funded. I think Raymond Leonard, he's getting ready to do Kickstarter soon, and I want to see that one take off. He's doing an Icon-esque version, a character like Icon, so I'm gonna be promoting that one too, and I'm gonna put in a pledge for that one. And I'm glad to see that you've picked up the Temptation of John Haynes' Dark Gable 831. I'm getting ready to do things with the John Haynes character. I have 2 more John Haynes books I'm getting ready to do. I have Dark Succubus. I'm just waiting for Mike to get back to me on the cover. And I have Man with Nothing to Lose. I'm getting ready to do concepts for that. And I'm going to try to contact some artists soon about the cover for that one. So I'm getting ready to do some things with the John Haynes character. And I have another story I want to do called Taking Care of Business, which will tie into the Lilith character from Night of the Vampires and the upcoming Eternal Night, which is going to be a black goth vampire story. And that's one of my projects I want to get into because I really want to make a real commentary on vampires. Yeah, I agree with you, Dark Gable 831. Yeah, manga has that hero's journey, and because they focus on the hero's journey, that's why the stories are better written, because they have full character transformation arcs, and they always focus on giving us that hero's journey where we see those characters change. And that's why manga has been doing better than comic books, because when it comes down to comics, we're not really focusing on developing the characters or helping make the characters grow and helping those characters become somebody that people can relate to. Dark Gable 831, yeah, I would love to get this Eternal Night out here. I think this is going to be an awesome book if I can start on it. But right now I'm working on this ISIS main event, but I want to get on Eternal Night sooner rather than later. I may start that. I've already started like part of the first chapter, but I want to get back to it because I had to stop in order to move, but I want to get back into that. But I've done other vampire stories. I did Isis, Bride of Dracula, which was Isis and John Haynes taking on Dracula, and the sequel to that, Isis, Escape from Transylvania, and the story before that opened everything, which was Isis, Night of the Vampires. It's a 3-part story that is available on Amazon. Both Bride of Dracula and Escape from Transylvania are available on Kindle Unlimited, but you can get all 3 books in paperback, and they are a lot of fun. They were my take on the vampire lore, but with Eternal Night, I really want to get in depth into the vampire lore as related to the SJS Direct universe. Well, Luciano, how much is Man Crisis right now? Man Crisis is $6.99 in Kindle and ebook formats like Smashwords and Barnes & Noble, and paperback is $18. So you can get Man Crisis for $6.99 on Kindle, Smashwords, the iBook store, and Barnes & Noble. And if you want to pick that book up on Smashwords, I'll leave a link to it in the chat, and you guys can pick that up on Smashwords right now. So the paperback is on Amazon. That's the place where it usually is. Dark Gable, I don't think DC was wasting Scott Snyder's talent. I just think that Scott Snyder was out of his depth at DC, because the dark vision doesn't work for DC characters. DC characters are really bright. Universal Black, I don't know if they released Mr. Miracle, but with Ava DuVernay in charge, I really don't want to see Mr. Miracle on there. Mr. Miracle's a great character. Great to hear that, Dark Gable. I'm glad to hear you're following me. because I'm going to get ready to get this Dark Succubus out, and I'm going to want to get this Eternal Night going. Um, I haven't read the Terrifics yet, Supremo, but I will. I might take a look at it. When it comes down to comics, I have been looking at different comics. I'm getting ready to look at Josh Howard's T-Bird and Throttle. I'm just waiting for him to release it. I put in a pledge for that one a while back, and I'm eager to put in a pledge for the third issue because I'm hearing good things about that book. Luciano, do I think DC is going to surpass MCU? They might be able to do it, but the whole thing is that their infrastructure just isn't there yet. And because their infrastructure just isn't there yet, that's the big problem as related to Oh, I've seen all the episodes of ISIS on YouTube. They're all up on YouTube. Satanix69. I've seen them. I've seen them all. So, but this is a link to Josh Howard's T-Bird and Throttle. If you want to pick up an issue of that, that's a really great comic. The first two issues were amazing. Not the first. 0 and number 1. They were amazing, and Josh has really put together a great story. I love Josh's art. And I would love to have a cover with Josh Howard's art on it, and that's one of the things I'm working on as well. I've always wanted to see my characters done by him, so that's also something I'm working on too. In addition, Elijah Brown, do I feel like live TV adaptations strip away from the characters? No, not necessarily. If they're executed properly, they actually stay true to the spirit of the character, and you don't take anything away. You just translate it to a different medium. For example, with 2008's Iron Man, it's just like the comic book come to life. When you look at 2008's Iron Man, it's just like David Michelini and Bob Layton's Iron Man. I remember reading the 1970s Iron Man book what detailed his origin and his first meeting with Jim Rhodes, and those two issues are literally like in the first half hour of the Iron Man movie. So if you have an adaptation and you have somebody who cares about the characters, they're going to bring those characters to life in a way that stays true to the spirit of those characters. I'm glad you like Josh's art, Molly. I would love to see Isis and E-Steam and John Haynes done in Josh's art style, and that's something I'm working on because I really wanted to work with him. I've wanted to work with him for years, but I just couldn't get my money together. But it's something I want to do, and I'm eager to do. And if he's available, I'm gonna try to get a cover with Josh's art on it. I have some concepts on my Instagram. I did the John Haynes, the man who has nothing to lose version. That pays homage to the UK Avengers, which is John Steed and Emma Peel, and I have my John Haynes and E-Steam action figures posed like John Steed and Emma Peel from the Avengers, and I think Josh would make an amazing picture with that. Biasacker, I'm glad you love The Man Crisis. Everybody who has picked up The Man Crisis has enjoyed this book, and they've learned so much. And you guys can learn something too. Man Crisis is also, again, it's available on Amazon and paperback and Kindle, and it's also available on Smashwords in the iBookstore. And you can learn a lot about men and men's issues from it, and learn things that a lot of guys, their fathers never taught them. I'm going to take a look at Excellence, Dark Gable 831, because I've heard good things about it. Just some guy talked about it a while back, and he said good things about it. So I'm going to take a look at this book and see what it's about. So I'm definitely going to take a look at that one. So I'm definitely gonna look at that one. Yeah, I was subbed to Just Some Guy for a while, and yeah, he's a black comic fan like me. Um, and I used to do reviews of comics, but I had stopped for a while because I just didn't want to do the SJW comics. What I want to do to help the industry is go out here and pray and give reviews of books that are good, like Omega Black and like Zombie Tramp and many other good books out here which don't really get the exposure that they need or the support they need. And that's the new direction I want to go into, because when I look at Comicsgate that didn't want any solutions, I always wanted a solution. So what I want to do is give those smaller books the support that they need, because those are the books that I believe could save the industry overall, because good books like Zombie Tramp was really rock solid. T-Bird and Throttle is very solid. Um, there are a lot of good comics out there. I mean, and they're sitting there and nobody's paying them any attention. Like I recently read, which a lot of people would think is corny, Betty and Veronica Meet Vampirella and Red Sonja, and it was a very good comic. It was a very, very, very good comic, very well crafted. And the same thing with the Xena Warrior Princess comic. I mean, Xena Warrior Princess from Dynamite is just like the TV show. I mean, it's like watching a TV show, and you have Dynamite's Elvira out there, and there's some good comics out there, but the whole comic YouTube community, they would rather spend their time roasting bad Marvel books rather than making an effort to get people to go out here and support good books. Where I'd rather, and my thing, what I want to do is I want to support good comics and help those comics really find an audience. So that's what I want to do when I do comic videos now, because as I see it, you can't complain about the bad comics if you keep buying them. If you want a solution, you go out here and support the good comics and let the audience find those good comics, and that'll give shop owners an incentive to order those comics. So a lot of people complain about the comic shops closing and a lot of shop owners suffering. But my solution is, if they're not going to do good Marvel comics, then let's give some of these indies that money and let's those guys make that money and get those books the exposure that they need. Because there's a lot of really good comics out there that really aren't getting the support that they need. I mean, Action Lab has been doing a great job on comics. Dynamite has had some fairly decent books here and there. And Unique, I have to take a look at them, but I have looked at a lot of good comics out there, and they definitely deserve your dollars. And a lot of the indie guys who are like Raymond Leonard and Chris L. Brown, they could use your dollars to help get great products out there. Now, I'm trying to get my own comic to the marketplace. I started an Indiegogo 2 months ago that didn't take off for the first ISIS graphic novel. And what I'm trying to do now to get that project funded so I can publish the first ISIS graphic novel is I'm trying to get donations through Patreon to get the book published. And if everybody were to donate $1, I say, I could get the money to publish the first ISIS graphic novel, and I would get that ISIS graphic novel to you all for free. I'll give you all the digital version if you all donated $1 to help me fund the ISIS graphic novel Indiegogo. So that's something that was a goal I had for 2019. I wanted to publish the first ISIS graphic novel. It was going to feature art from Bill Walko, and it was going to be an adaptation of ISIS All That Glitters. That was the original goal, and the art that you see here on the cover was going to be on the book. So this was what you were going to get in a comic book, and it's something I still want to offer everybody. And if I can do it, God willing, I would go out here and do it. And again, I have 10,000 going on 11,000 subscribers, and again, if everybody donated $1, I could get this book out here and on the marketplace, and everybody would get a free copy in a PDF format. So that's something I'm trying to do. Thank you, Zoomer Hub. I have not stopped writing. I am still writing, and I have been writing for ever since I was 9 years old. So I have not stopped writing ever since I was about 16 when I returned to writing. So I've been writing for about a good, 25, 30 years now. So that's why I can talk about different. Luciano, yeah, I think the movie industry is more dependent on the comic book industry. Yeah, they are dependent on the movie industry, but what they need to do is start focusing on developing new properties. Because if they focus on developing new properties, they need to get their sales up because they're thinking that the movies are going to go on forever. But as I see it right now, Phase 4 looks really rickety for Marvel Studios, and DC hasn't really been able to get anything going um, overall. So the big problem with the comic book industry now is that they just thinking that the movie is going to go on forever. But there's going to come a point where people stop watching movies because the same thing happened to musicals and epic movies. People and even animated movies, because I remember hand-drawn animated movies back in the 90s, people just got tired of them, and then they stopped putting together quality films, so everything just fell out. So I think that they need to start focusing on building some new characters, building some great new stories, and getting new readers into comics. And they missed the biggest opportunity of all time to get new readers into comics by going out here and messing up the Marvel universe and the DC universe with the New 52 and the Secret Wars reboot. So it's hard to get the new readers in because these editors are their own worst enemies, and they're not thinking about trying to get the book sales. All they're thinking about is making products that sate their ego. Bloodsport 1, I would love to start another Indiegogo, but unfortunately, I can't really get one of these crowdfunding things funded. I did several Kickstarters that failed. I just did an Indiegogo in, I think, February or March. That didn't go anywhere. So I have to go in an alternative route because the way that I went before just didn't work. And the definition of insanity is, again, to do the exact same thing and expect a different result. So I'm going to go in a different direction. And again, I'm going to go through Patreon and PayPal to get the donations to get the first ISIS graphic novel funded. And if everybody donates, again, I can get that comic to people. And I'm working on the logistics to try to get that comic to people because I will give everybody that comic for free just so that people can see what a Sean James comic looks like. Because as a lot of people, they like my stories, and I want to try to give you a translation of one of my stories in comic format. And that's what I want to do. Jevin, what I would need to publish the first ISIS graphic novel, I was going to need 9,300 for the art, another 3,100, I believe, for the letters, and I think another couple of 5,000 for the colors, because because the artist I'm using is Bill Walko. He has a rate, and then you have a colorist who has a rate. So I really, it would take a lot of money to put that together. I'm pondering doing something with the E-Steam No Good Deed featurette. I might do that one first if I can get enough money, and then I would go on to the ISIS book because the E-Steam story is only 11 pages, and that would be something I could post up to give people an example of what the story would look like and what everything would come together. But I'm working on it right now, and I'm crunching the numbers on it and trying to get things together. I've got enough for a couple of pages, but I want to have enough so I can pay Bill Walko for the entire project, because when it comes down to artists, you can't pay them by the page. It's just, that's not how things go. You want to be able to give them the money altogether so that they can work on the project. And that's something, because when it comes down to artists, they need to be able to have a flow. And when you have everything together, they can work on the whole story and not on bits and pieces. And that makes sure that you get a consistent story and consistent art. I didn't want to be able to go to Bill Walko and say, oh, I want to do 1 or 2 pages, and then come back to him and say, oh, I need you to do page 3 and page 4. It's just, I want to be able to say, here it is. Here's the thing for the entire story. And he can just go to work and be assured that he's going to be paid for his work and his time, because I've heard about how many of these comic companies, the way they treat people, and they don't really pay people on time. And whenever I work with an artist, I always make sure that I'm ready to pay them for any work that I do. I mean, they do, and be able to have them taken care of, because I understand they have bills they have to pay. I understand that, their time is precious and their time is valuable and their time is money. So I want to treat them with the same respect I would want whenever I would be asked to do an article for someone. Like, I've had people ask me to write articles for them, and they would pay me for the article. So I would have when I finished the article, they would pay me immediately, and that's what I want to do with all the comic artists and other comic pros I work with, because I've heard about how a lot of them get cheated. So that's something that I don't want to do as a publisher, and that's why I have always been trying to do things on a professional level. So Bitterroot, I haven't heard about that one. Well, Zoomer Hub, I write a lot of novels. I've written a lot of novels. I wrote 3 books in the Spinsterella trilogy. I've written a book called The Thetas. I've written a bunch of novels. So if you read novels, you're going to find a lot of them up there on my page. Bill has gone out of his way to promote the book. He's promoted it on his Facebook. He tried to help promote the Indiegogo. He offered several covers, original art as rewards, but we just couldn't get the funding. He has made efforts to help support it, but the whole thing is that it's been hard for me to get the funding for my books. There aren't that many comic books about street fighting or the gang scene, because Supremo, I have thought about doing a comic. Well, that's what I'm trying to do with the ISIS graphic novels. I want to try to give people an example of my storytelling, and I wanted to give people an example of Bill's art. So I wanted to be able to give people a showcase, so that when you go to a Comic-Con, you can say, hey, this is an example of what I do. And you can also be able to show it to editors and other publishers, and they can get a sense of your story and your style. And that's what I wanted to do with the ISIS graphic novel. It was not just going to thank you, Dark Gable. But as I see it, it just takes time to build an audience, and that's what I'm trying to do right now. Because the only way for an author to get an audience is they have to go out and find it themselves. So that's what I'm trying to do. People do love my work. Yeah, I mean, people all over enjoy the stories that I write. But what I'm trying to do is trying to build that customer base, that reader base, that will help me build the word of mouth. And that's if I can build a word of mouth like I've done on my nonfiction, because when it comes down to books like Man Crisis, I have built that word of mouth to a point, but the whole thing is I need more exposure in media platforms like radio shows and TV shows. I can reach more customers and get more readers. And what I'm trying to do now is, as I've built the base for nonfiction, I'm trying to build the base for my fiction with books like the Esteemed Goddess of and the Isis All That Glitters, and books like Spellbound. I'm trying to build the audiences for these books, like with the goth subculture and black fantasy, and books like Temptation of John Haynes. I've been trying to build the audience for it, and I've been trying to reach new readers, but it just takes time to go out here and reach them and try to get on platforms that will allow me to reach a larger audience. Now, I'm not going to do any books about slaves. Thank you, D. Woodward. I wanted to make a stream that, again, talked about the DC comics. And thank you, Dark Able. I will continue to keep promoting. That's what the channel is all about. And that's something I'm trying to do. I'm always going out here promoting. That's what the ads are all about. As you see before every video, I'm trying to make every effort to reach new readers and reach new customers. And I want to build that customer base, and I really want to build the SJS Direct Imprint into something. I wouldn't do a story about street fighting. The closest I've done to that was a story called Isis: The Ultimate Fight, where Isis takes on the Greek goddess Nemesis in the octagon for the AFC. But that's about it. But I don't want to do any stories like that. I also did a story called Samurai Goddess, which was kind of pulpy, similar to Doc Savage. But that one had some great kung fu fights as well. Um, have I ever thought about writing Mantis? I think those rights are tied up, so I don't think I'll be able to get those. Plus, they would cost too much. But Luciano, yeah, Isis: The Ultimate Fight has Isis taking on Nemesis in the octagon, and also I'm doing a story called Isis: The Main Event right now, which is about wrestling, and I'm doing that story right now. I'm trying to work out this parts of the second act so I can get into the third, and that one is going to be more about learning about wrestling and how things work. It's based on me being a WWE fan. Yeah, that's also my problem with Batwoman Dark Gable 831 is that they are pushing that lesbian angle too much, and they aren't really telling the story about how Kate Kane is going to protect Gotham City. It's all about her being this lesbian and her having this relationship, and about how she's a hero to her girlfriend, but not how she is a hero to Gotham City. And Bruce was a hero to all of Gotham City. He made an oath to protect Gotham City, and that's what made Bruce a hero. It's just this is something that Guardian Devil, he's a YouTuber. You need to take a look at his channel, and he talked about the difference between SJW writing and traditional writing. And when it comes down to SJW writing, it's always about what makes the person a hero to them and not what makes them a hero to others. So it's never about the sacrifices that they do for others. It's all about what they want for themselves, and it's all about them being really selfish. And that's a big problem with these SJW characters, like what they're doing with Batwoman. They're not really focusing on the people and what they want to sacrifice, because it's all about what they can get from people and not about what they can do for others. And heroes are all about making sacrifices and doing what's right for others, not what's right for themselves. So that's why when I look at a lot of these characters like your Batwoman, they're not really heroes. Isis: The Ultimate Fight is only one book, and that's in paperback on Amazon right now. I'll, I mean, oh, there it is. That came out. I published that. Was the second book that I published. I published. Try to put it in there, but I don't know. It's not going to let me put it in. But the Smashwords version is available, and let me see. I'm going to try to go to Barnes and Noble. One moment, just over to Barnes and Noble, and All I have is the ebook version. But this is the Smashwords version, and you can find it there. But it's $8.99 in paperback, but it's $2.99 in Kindle format and ebook format. Charles, you make a good point. It's like Jeff Johns has been making a mess in that executive position, because when I think of Twilight Batman, you know what I think of? I think of Tom King. It's like, I think if what they're trying to do is give us that Tom King beta male Batman, and that's not really going to work, because if you give us that Tom King beta male Batman, which has been selling like crap in the comics. Yeah, Dark Gable, Tom King is a weak guy, and his Batman is a complete wimp. I mean, when I read Bruce in the old days, when Vicky Vale, Silver St. Cloud, Nocturna, all these women have left Bruce, and Bruce just dealt with it. He navigated through his emotions and he moved on. I mean, if you read the Breyfogle run, or you read the Starlin run, or even the Max Collins run of Batman, you will see that Bruce was able to deal with a breakup fairly easily. I mean, Selina has dumped Bruce back in the days of the pre-crisis DC, and he just got over it. I mean, in Tom King's world, Batman is such a beta that he can't even deal with anything. And the issue that was done by Amanda Conner, where they emasculated Batman and showed that they had no respect for Batman or Superman, that was an issue that irked me. And then they had the homosexual undertones in Thomas Wayne and Bane's fight, which was also quite disturbing. So Tom King's run really it's not a run that I could recommend. It's nowhere near the Starlin run of Batman. It's nowhere near because the Starlin run of Batman is very good. The Max Collins run of Batman, or the Alan Grant and Breyfogle run. I love the Alan Grant and Breyfogle run. Breyfogle's Batman is just so distinct. I mean, I like looking at the way he made him move, the late Norm Breyfogle. Luciano, what themes would I be interested in using for my books? I'm thinking about doing a mystery, but I usually just focus on contemporary fantasy, because that's the style I like to write in. I want to do more vampires, adventures type stories. Yeah, Max Collins, he's a great writer. I mean, his Miss Tree is one of the best comics you could ever pick up. Terry Beatty, he did some commissions for the ISIS and East team for me, and he tells me that Miss Tree is going to be coming out in trade paperback. But that's another great comic that I highly recommend. But that's one I recommend that you guys go pick up. That one came up when I was in the 80s, but that was a great comic too. It's about 12 minutes. I'm going to wrap the stream up in about 12 minutes, because I'm going to try to get back to this ISIS main event story that I've been working on. If they make a Tom King and a version of DC of Batman, he's going to flop, because nobody wants to see a beta male Batman, Charles Smith. When it comes down to Batman, there are certain things we want to see. I mean, Christian Bale's Batman gave us a good Batman. Michael Keaton's Batman gave us a good Batman. But if you come out here with this beta male Tom King Batman, which is mostly him just sitting there and talking, or sitting there and brooding over a female, this simp Batman that they want to produce, he is not going to do well. I haven't seen Gods and Monsters yet, I don't think, Devon, but I'm trying to see the new one that they came out with. I want to try to get. Thank you, Dark Gable. All those Voltrons were gifts from family. My mother gave me the Voltron Lion team. My brother gave me the vehicle team and the Gladiator Voltrons. I've had them since about the Lion Force. I had them since '88, and I've had the vehicle team since 1989. So those were shows I used to watch regularly when I was about 10, 11 years old. I remember it used to come on 3:30 or 4 o'clock on Channel 11, and I always looked forward to Voltron. And it was a toy that I got in the sixth grade as a graduation gift. I got the first vehicle team. That's actually the second one I've gotten. And I played with that toy to death. So um, I wanted to have that toy again. And I went out here and my brother got it for me for Christmas. And it meant a lot to me to get them because Voltron was the show for me. So I've had those for about 30 years. They've been a big part of my toy display. And I put them on top of the dresser because I want that. I didn't want them to get broken. So the Lion Force is a little floppy, but it's still in good shape. But the Gladiator one is a little rough. But the vehicle team is in the one in the best shape. So I may do a tour now that I've got all the figures on the shelf. I also have, in addition to that Voltron, I have this Voltron. This was the Blazing Sword Voltron. I got this one back about 2010 or 2000 or so when it first came out. But I always wanted a 6-inch scale Voltron, and I got this one. But the Matty Collector one that they were selling at the time, I didn't like that one. That one was real floppy, and I didn't like that one too much. But I love Voltron. The only one that I would love to get is I heard about Solar Shigoken. They're getting ready to come out with 2 more. I'd love to buy those one day. But I would love to get those. Solar Shigoken Voltron, they say is one of the best ones out there, but these days it costs $1,000. They're coming out with a reissue, but I would love to have that one. If Jeff Johns is writing Green Lantern movie, I don't know, because when it comes down to Jeff Johns, he's hit or miss. And I think if he did a Green Lantern movie, I don't think he would do John Stewart justice, because when it comes down to Johns, he's a little obsessed with Hal Jordan, and most of them are obsessed with Hal Jordan, even though when I read Hal Jordan, he's really boring. And I found Kyle Rayner and John Stewart to be more interesting than Hal Jordan. I find that they have stronger voices. Kyle has better constructs. John Stewart has a better story. And Guy Gardner has a stronger voice. But when it comes down to Hal Jordan, he's boring to me. I read what they were saying about the Arthur episode, but I'm planning on doing a whole video on that because Arthur was a show I used to watch regularly. Yes, Primo, Hal Jordan wasn't a bestseller. Actually, Kyle outsold Hal Jordan. That's why the reason why they brought Kyle Rayner in is because he sold better than Hal Jordan. He was actually the best-selling version of Green Lantern, because when Hal was out here, they had to bring Oliver Queen in hopes of trying to get the sales up. And the big problem with Hal Jordan is he's boring. I mean, I remember reading the Gerard Jones run of Green Lantern, and it was painful to get through. And it wasn't until Kyle came along that the book started getting interesting. But because old heads like Hal Jordan and Barry Allen, they want him back. But the problem is Hal Jordan just doesn't sell books. And that's just based on the numbers, because Kyle was doing 200,000 sales easy, but Hal's book, it would always struggle and fall apart. But the whole thing is everybody's like, oh, he's an icon, he's a major character, but he's just not selling. He just doesn't sell books because his story is boring. But John Stewart is very interesting. I mean, John Stewart, especially from Justice League, he's very compelling. I mean, when you look at John Stewart's story, it's a very interesting one. And when you look at Kyle Rayner's story, it's a very compelling one. And even Guy Gardner can be interesting at times, but the big problem with Hal Jordan is just that he's just bland. I mean, it's just like him and Barry Allen. Luciano, have I done any civil rights books? Well, the thing that I did is close to a civil rights book is ISIS Imitation of Life. In that book, I tackled Jim Crow. And in the first ISIS, I talk about racism. But the whole thing is that this is in the pre-civil rights era. Imitation of Life takes place during the 30s, and it deals with the pre-civil rights era. So that's about as close as I've done to a civil rights book. Excuse me. Charles, yeah, it's just not, yeah, you're right. It's not a good place when it comes down to DC. And that's also because they don't have much of a vision for the brand, whether it be publishing, television, or film. They just don't really have that vision for it. And because they don't have that vision, nobody knows where they're going. And Jeff Johns, yeah, he's like Chris Claremont as I see it. He's just, Chris Claremont tried to take on too much back in the days of the X-Men in their prime. And when it came down to the X-Men, he wound up making a complete mess of plot threads, and then that wound up falling completely apart. Now, that's one of the things that messed up the X-Men, and that's because he took on too much. Because Jeff Johns, he should have just delegated some of those books like New Mutants and Excalibur and let some other writers get a hold of those characters, but they wanted to put everything on Chris. And this is a big problem with the comic book industry. Whenever a writer is popular, they want to put all the books on him. Well, no, and the actual thing you need to do is delegate some of those books to other writers and let them work on some of those books so that the load is shared and that you can get different perspectives on different types of characters. Because one of the things that messed up the X-Men franchises was that you had you had Chris Claremont trying to do everything when you really needed different takes and different aspects to show us that there were different and diverse ideas as related to the X-Men's part of the Marvel Universe. Because I like what they did later on, where they had X-Force being paramilitary, they had X-Factor being government, and then they had the X-Men primarily focused on the mission of Charles Xavier. Jim Shooter came up with New Mutants. I didn't know that, but New Mutants was one of those books that it was a great concept. Jim Shooter had a great concept, but the problem was they couldn't execute. And the book really struggled for a long time. I mean, it struggled for a long time because it was trying to be the first attempt to bring more new X-Men type characters, but it was just hard to relate to a lot of them. And I could see not really much passion on the page. And that's what I saw, and Supremo's confirming it, that Chris was reluctant to do it, but I looked at it, it really wasn't as strong. I mean, it wasn't as strong as X-Men. It didn't really have that heart. And that's something I need to do a video on, about a writer's heart, because you can see a writer's heart on the page. You can see his passion on the page. And when a writer doesn't have that passion, it's just going to come across on the page. The story's going to be really uninspired. It's not going to really flow very well. The characterizations aren't going to be on point, and things aren't going to be consistent. And when your heart's not in it, that's I need to do a whole video on a writer's heart, because there's some writing points I want to talk about. I want to make a video also about chemistry, because when you have two characters with chemistry, it can really make that story take off. But these are elements that I really want to explore as related to writing in a video. And I think I want to make those videos about a writer's heart and the chemistry between two characters, because that's something that can really get people excited about a story. I remember when I was writing Temptation of John Haynes, and I could feel the chemistry between the E-Steam and John Haynes characters on the page, and you could see it swirling between the characters, and you could also see the heart on the page. And that's something that I really want to express in a story, and that's something a writer has to do. They have to put their heart on the page, and we really don't see that heart in a story when a writer's just not into it. That's why I oftentimes will hold off on a project until I can get that passion for it, because I want that story to be the very best. Because I remember Night of the Vampires, I had the idea for that for about 2 years, and I sat on it until I felt like it was ready to go. So when a writer's not into a story, they can just they'll produce a story, but the quality just wasn't there. And I might have, but New Mutants was this comic that was like I was growing up in the '80s, but it wasn't really something I was into, and you could just really didn't feel Chris's energy when you read Excalibur. You felt his energy. When you read Excalibur, that book really you could see the enthusiasm in Chris Claremont. I mean, he really loved that book, and I saw a lot of love for those characters on the page with him, with Alan Davis. It was just that book was alive until the Cross Time Caper, but there was a lot of heart in that book. It's interesting. No, Bob Layton wrote X Factor. I think it was Bob Layton. He was a major part of X Factor. Supremo, I remember that one because Bob talks about that, and he was trying to do something with the original X-Men, but they said that book fell apart because the whole Jean Grey thing. But X Factor never really took off the way it should have, but it felt forced. I'll say that much about X Factor. I mean, I think that was Louise Simonson. She started to come in on that one, but it just never really felt there. Dark Gable, yeah, the Hellfire Club did activate Jean as Dark Phoenix because of Mastermind. I actually had some of those issues. I wound up selling them back in '89, but yeah, that was a part of it. And we're at midnight right now, and I'm gonna get ready to wrap this stream up because it's midnight and I have some work to do. What are the books I'm developing this fall? Luciano, I am developing it. I'm hoping to develop Eternal Night, and I'm hoping to do John Haynes Taking Care of Business. And I want to do an E-Steam story so I can have books ready for the 2020 catalog. And that's what I want to do for the 2020 catalog. And I want to do Isis Revenge of the Cyber Goddess, which picks up the third part of the whole Cyber Goddess saga. And those are the books that I want to work on. Those are the books I want to do. And I also want to do Spinsterella's Summer Vacation. We'll see what happens because I'm trying to adjust to this new place. And I'm trying to get things on track. I mean, I have John Haynes, the man who has nothing to lose, and up and ready to go. That one is finished. I'm doing the page layouts on that one. I'm trying to get this ISIS main event finished. And I want to get started on Eternal Night. So those are the projects I want to work on. And that's what I want to do. But I can only do that. I can only keep doing that if you guys keep supporting the books. But I have a lot of great books I want to get out here for 2020. But if you guys buy the 2019 books and the other books from previously, that helps me to get the funds to pay artists like Bill Walko and Mike Williams for the covers. And it also helps me to be able to pay things like the internet bills and the other bills I need to keep going. So I would really appreciate it if everybody would go out here and pick up the 2019 books, E-Steam Goddess of and Isis All That Glitters, and the books like Temptation of John Haynes, The Man Crisis, and books like Spellbound, and the books of the Spinsterella trilogy. Thank you all for coming to the live stream. I really appreciate you guys taking the time with me, and I hope to have another live stream possibly this Wednesday. You can pick up all of my books on Amazon.com in paperback and ebook, and you can also pick up ebooks on Smashwords and the iBookstore. And I would really appreciate it if you guys would donate to the Patreon so I can get the first ISIS graphic novel published. Again, 10,000 subscribers. We can get this book funded in 2 months if everybody helps out with the donations to the Patreon. Thank you all for coming to the stream, and good night.